In 2000, China had roughly 100 commercial airports. Today, it has 259. That is one new airport, on average, every single month for 20 years. Some of those airports took 3 years to build, some took 5. Some were constructed on the tops of mountains, blasted into cliff sides, or laid across valleys that required entire new bridges just to reach the runway. The United States spent over 200 years building its air network. China built something comparable in 2 decades. And here is the part that sounds impossible. They are not finished. Right now, China's government has a plan to reach 450 airports by 2035. That is a new airport construction program so large, it would represent almost doubling the current total in less than 10 years. This is the story of the greatest aviation build program in history, how they did it, what it cost, what it changed, and what they are building next. To understand what China built, you first have to understand what it started with. In 1980, China had 3.4 million air passengers, the entire country, in a year. For comparison, Heathrow Airport in London handles more than that every single week. But that number alone does not tell the real story. The real story is who those passengers were. In 1988, just 36 years ago, 95% of the people flying in China were foreigners. Let that settle. The Chinese people, in their own country, on their own airlines, were almost entirely absent from air travel. Plane tickets had to be obtained through your work unit, a Runway, not purchased at an airport. Flying was for senior government officials, academics, and visiting foreigners. For ordinary Chinese citizens, it was not a mode of transport. It was not something most people ever expected to do. By the late 2000s, that same statistic had completely flipped. 95% of passengers were Chinese. Think about the scale of that reversal. The same airports, the same routes, but the entire passenger base had transformed within a single generation. What caused it? One thing above all others. China got rich, fast. As incomes rose through the 1990s and 2000s, hundreds of millions of Chinese people moved into the middle class. And one of the first things a middle-class family does, everywhere in the world, is fly somewhere. China did not have a slow, gradual rise in air travel. It had an explosion. Passenger numbers doubled every 4 years through the 2000s. The airports China had were not built for this. They were not even close. So China had a massive, rapidly growing demand for air travel, and not enough airports. What happened next was unlike anything that has ever been attempted in the history of aviation. China built a machine for building airports, and then it ran that machine continuously for 2 decades. The key is something most Western countries do not have: the 5-year plan. Every 5 years, China's government publishes a detailed national infrastructure blueprint. It sets specific numerical targets, it allocates funding, it assigns responsibility, and then it measures delivery against those targets. Airport construction was placed at the center of these plans from the early 2000s onwards, not as a suggestion, as a mandate. The 10th 5-year plan, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th. Each one included dozens of airport projects, new builds, relocations, expansions, with completion targets, budgets, and named officials responsible for delivery. When the government of China decides it needs airports, it does not wait for private developers, planning inquiries, or local referendums. It acquires land, it assigns construction teams, it mobilizes state capital, and it builds. The speed was extraordinary. Large commercial airports that would take 10 to 15 years to plan and build in Europe or the United States were being completed in China in 3 to 5 years, sometimes less. And the locations? Almost deliberately difficult. China's most remote western provinces, Xinjiang, Tibet, Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan, became the front lines of this program. These were exactly the regions with the worst ground transport, the most rugged terrain, and the most isolated communities. Xinjiang today has 21 civil airports. Inner Mongolia has 19. Sichuan has 15. Yunnan has 15. These are not tourist destinations. These are provinces where building a runway means blasting through a mountain, bridging a canyon, or laying foundations on ground that is frozen half the year. China built there anyway. But if you want to understand the ambition of what China built, you need to look at one airport. Beijing Daxing International Airport. By 2014, Beijing's existing Capital International Airport was collapsing under demand. It was designed for 83 million passengers a year. It was handling 100 million. Airlines couldn't add routes because there were no slots. Delays spiraled. The airport had become a bottleneck for the entire economy. The Chinese government's response was to build, from scratch, a second international airport for Beijing. They hired the late Iraqi-British architect Zaha Hadid to design the terminal. She created something that, from the air, looks like a giant starfish, 6 curved arms extending from a central hub, each one a departure wing, each one long enough that you could walk 10 minutes and still not reach the end. She died in 2016. She never saw it open. Construction began in December 2014. The airport opened on September 25, 2019. 5 years from groundbreaking to operation. For an airport this size, that is extraordinary. How large is it? The terminal alone covers 700,000 square meters. That is the size of 97 football pitches, under a single roof. The total cost of the airport terminal and runways, $17 billion. When you include the roads, rail links, and surrounding infrastructure needed to connect it to Beijing, $63 billion. More than 40,000 workers on site, 52,000 tons of steel, 1.6 million cubic meters of concrete. And it is not just the size, it is the engineering. Beneath the terminal, running directly under the building, are 5 railway lines, including high-speed rail connecting Daxing to central Beijing in 20 minutes, and to the new Xiong'an development zone at 350 kilometers per hour. The foundations required more than 1,100 anti-seismic pillars designed to withstand a magnitude 8 earthquake, because high-speed trains cannot slow down even when the ground is moving. The whole structure is built to an anti-seismic standard that makes it the world's largest single anti-seismic structure. It was designed so that from any gate in the building, you can reach the central check-in hall in under 8 minutes on foot. In a terminal the size of a small city, that is a remarkable engineering achievement. Facial recognition throughout, 5G integrated, smart baggage, automated boarding. Not an airport from the past scaled up, an airport designed for the next 50 years. Daxing gets all the attention, but the airports that tell the real story of what China built are the ones nobody talks about. Go to Guizhou province in southwest China, a place of deep gorges, limestone towers, and remote villages that in the 1990s could take days to reach from the nearest city. Today, Guizhou has 11 civil airports. Several of them are built on plateaus carved out of hilltops, the valleys too narrow and steep for a runway, so the engineers simply flattened the tops of mountains and built there instead. Runways that end at the edge of a cliff, terminals perched above clouds. Go to Tibet. The Lhasa Gongar Airport sits at 3,600 meters above sea level, nearly as high as the base camp of Mont Blanc. Planes landing there face air so thin that engines behave differently, descent profiles are steeper, and pilots need additional certification just to fly the approach. The airport at Daocheng Yading in Sichuan sits at 4,411 meters, the highest commercial airport in the world. Go to Yunnan, where the Lancang Airport is built on a narrow ridge above a river gorge. The runway has terrain rising on both ends. There is nowhere to go around. You land, you stop. Full stop. These airports were not built because they were easy. They were built as deliberate policy. For decades, the Chinese government had watched remote western provinces remain economically disconnected from the rest of the country. The roads were too difficult, the distances too great. High-speed rail couldn't reach everywhere in time. An airport changes everything. A 2-day journey becomes 90 minutes. A village that produced crafts no one could buy suddenly has access to buyers in Shanghai, Chengdu, and Beijing. A hospital that couldn't attract specialists from the coast suddenly could, because they could fly in and out the same day. China built airports in remote regions not just as infrastructure, as economic medicine, delivered fast and built to last. Here is the twist in this story that nobody expected. While China was building all these airports, it was also building the world's longest high-speed railway network. 48,000 kilometers of high-speed rail as of 2024, more than the rest of the world combined. Trains running at 300 to 350 kilometers per hour between China's major cities. And high-speed rail is very good at one thing: making short-haul flights unnecessary. Research into the impact of China's rail expansion found that when a high-speed line opens between two cities, air passenger numbers on that same route fall by around 28%. On some corridors, Beijing to Shanghai, Wuhan to Guangzhou, the decline was closer to 34 to 45%. By 2025, roughly 80% of China's domestic airline routes overlapped with high-speed rail lines. The average flight within China has gotten longer. Short-haul routes, under 800 kilometers, that used to dominate domestic schedules are disappearing. Why fly for an hour, endure airport security, and wait at the gate when you can take a train that leaves from the city center and arrives at another city center in 2 hours? So China finds itself in a fascinating situation. It built the world's most ambitious airport construction program, at exactly the same time as it built the world's most ambitious high-speed rail program. And now, the two systems are actively competing with each other for the same passengers. But here's the thing: this is not a problem. This is a plan. The airports that high-speed rail cannot replace are exactly the ones China built in the remote West, in the mountains, on the plateaus, in the places where no train will run for decades. Those airports serve a demand that rail can never touch. And for international travel, which is exploding, only airports will do. Let us talk about the number that explains why China built all of this. In 1980, Chinese airports handled 3.4 million passengers for the entire year. In 2024, they handled 730 million. That is a 200-fold increase in 4 decades. No other aviation market in history has grown at anything close to that rate. To put it another way, China's airports now handle more passengers in 2 weeks than they handled in the entire year of 1980. 2024 was a record year, up 17.9% on 2023, and 10.6% above the pre-pandemic peak in 2019. Aviation in China did not just recover from COVID, it surpassed every previous benchmark within 2 years. The demand is driven by something structural, not cyclical. China now has the world's largest middle class, hundreds of millions of people with disposable income, and the expectation of traveling by air as a normal part of life. Air travel demand in China has grown at 8 to 12% annually for most of the past 20 years. China became the world's largest purchaser of passenger jets in 2009. It has been ordering planes faster than any country on Earth ever since. And even with 259 airports and 730 million passengers, 32 of China's busiest airports are already at or beyond capacity. 40 of the top 50 need renovation or expansion. The demand has already overtaken the infrastructure built to serve it. Which is why China is not slowing down. In 2018, China's Civil Aviation Administration published a target: 450 civil airports by 2035. China currently has 259. That means constructing approximately 190 more airports in the next decade, on top of hundreds of expansion and renovation projects at existing airports. The 14th five-year plan alone, covering 2021 to 2025, included 140 airport projects, new builds, relocations, expansions. That is an average of 28 airport projects per year, simultaneously, across a country the size of a continent. The demand projection behind this plan? China's air travel market is expected to surpass the United States and become the largest in the world by 2035, representing almost a quarter of all global flights. And the ambition goes further than numbers. China's plan calls for 12 airports capable of handling 100 million passengers per year. For context, there is currently only one airport on Earth that handles 100 million passengers annually: Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International. China's plan would create a dozen of them. Beijing alone is planned to have two 100 million passenger airports operating at the same time. Two airports, one city. More combined capacity than the entire aviation infrastructure of many medium-sized countries. The Guangzhou New Airport, currently under planning, is designed for a capacity of 140 million passengers a year, which, if built as planned, would make it the largest airport on Earth by a significant margin. These are not fantasy numbers from a planning document. Construction is active, investment is committed, the machine is running. We have covered a lot of builds on this channel. Towers, railways, cities built from nothing in the desert. Each of them was a statement, a country saying something about itself through concrete and steel. China's airport program is a statement too. It says 1 billion people who could not fly can now fly. It says the mountains in the west, the plateaus of Tibet, the gorges of Yunnan. None of that is remote anymore. It is all connected. It says we are not building for the traffic we have today. We are building for the traffic that is coming. And the numbers suggest they are right. In 1988, 95% of air passengers in China were foreigners, people who arrived from elsewhere, moved through, and left. Today, 730 million Chinese people are flying, in their own country, to each other. Next on Titan Projects, a $4 billion mall in the middle of the desert. It wasn't supposed to work. It nearly collapsed under its own ambition, and then it changed Dubai forever. Subscribe if you want to understand how the world is being built.